when we look at 2017, I think one of the things we're going to feel is it's a little more optimistic than we were when we sat in this rooms last year and gave our marketing meetings. And some things have changed and pretty radically. The one we're going to start out with is the new administration. That seems to be a topic that business-orientated administration coming in. I know there's been a lot of talk about maybe some issues with China and as far as how the trade would go. I know China came out the other day and said they're going to have some tariffs and implement those on DDGs. But I did a commodity week a couple weeks ago, and a point was brought up that I hadn't really thought about, but right now we kind of have an imbalance in trade with, say, China. They send us a lot of things and we don't send as much back or sell as much to them. But one thing was brought up was one way to balance that trade up even more would be to sell them or they buy more grain. So a little bit different twist than I had thought. So it might be one way that they could balance trade by buying more grain. And certainly that grain is cheap, so that all works out well. Second part that's probably the main core of our presentation today is where are the corn acres going to go? There's a big discussion going on that corn acres could drop 4 or 5 million going into 2017. We'll talk about where and why that may happen. That's probably one of the most positive things looking forward. The other thing is weather. We have some dry areas in this country in the south. The other component that's going to be somewhat a negative to corn and beans, we're going to have about 2 million less wheat acres again. Last year when we were in Nebraska, Jason and I, it was one of the discussions out there. They planted 2 million less acres last year, and we said those are going to go to corn and beans. So some of those acres, again, are going to come to the beans or the corn as we go forward. Money flow has been just really the driver in this market. When you look at the day-to-day gyrations of these markets, and they've been pretty active as we got into the new year, that money flow and knowing when they're going to move or how much they're going to move is a big component of our grain markets and kind of drives us crazy. We call it the flavor of the day because when it goes up, they have the reasons. When it goes down, they have the reasons. In reality, it's just their perception of moving money around. South American weather is something we'll want to touch on. It's been pretty important recently, more so in Argentina with excessive rain. Michael Clark will talk about that a little bit too. He's puts out and watches weather in South America. And then another important component is the US dollar and the Brazilian real. Bill's been watching those closely, and he'll talk about that.